Hi, and welcome to the Caleb and Jodi Moore Podcast. This is episode number 4, and we have a very special guest with us today. We have Land Commissioner Tommy Lands with us. Thank you for being here, Mr. Lands.
Thank you.
What a great name to have for Land Commissioner, Mr. Tommy Lands. So, Mr. Lands, you were elected in 2018. You were sworn in 2019, right?
That's correct.
And so you've had lots of experience in this area. And we're really glad to be here. We have a lot of stuff we want to talk to you about, like delinquent taxes and sales, maybe some minerals that I understand that you know a lot about. And then if we have time, some waterways that you oversee in your department and stuff like that. So a lot of broad things that we want to try to mention today and get to.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Lands, tell us a little bit about your background as commissioner, because this is what I see is probably not every kid on the block just says, I want to grow up and be a land commissioner. So describe what you do and tell us how you got started in that role.
Okay. Of course, the main focus of the land commissioner's office is real estate. And ever since I was a very young man, I've had an interest in real estate. I bought my first home when I was 19 and had to go to court and be declared an adult. Because at that time, 21 was the age of majority. And so I went to court with my real estate agent, no lawyer.
Yeah.
And
That's great.
So we stood before the judge, and my agent posed to the judge, what I was doing, and I had a job with AT&T at that time. And so he finally told me, he said, Mr. Land, I'm going to grant your petition to have at that time it was called have your minorities removed. And he said, but I want you to know that I'm granting it for the purpose of signing contracts and not to drink beer. So
I love that.
he made that pretty clear.
Yes.
And so having always had this interest in real estate, and I've bought and sold property as an individual over the years, and
That's fantastic.
had an interest in legal descriptions and things like that. And I met my predecessor at a dinner or something somewhere 2 years or so before he was term limited. And that was John Thurston. And just talking to him about the office, because I didn't know a lot about the land commissioner's office at that time, and talking to him about it, I just was something that was very interesting to me. Yeah. So I thought, I was talking to my wife about it. She was, at that time, she was the county assessor of Cleveland County. Yes, yeah, most definitely.
Yes.
I've learned talking to your wife about things. It's very, very great idea. It ends a lot of conflict.
That's right.
But
I don't know if I've learned that lesson yet or not.
you will.
I will. I will.
Caleb bought his first house without consulting me, by the way, and we were married. So I mentioned that on another podcast.
And it worked out great. She still holds that against me, but we made a lot of money on that house.
You're a brave man.
I am a brave man.
I know.
But talked to my wife about it, and like I said, she was the county assessor at that time, and the county, that's one county office that works very closely with the land commissioner's office. And so talked with her about it and made a decision to run, and ran, and really glad I did. I'm not running for re-election. I'm term limited, and I have no intention of running for any other office. Feel like I've served my time.
Your time.
And
Yes, done well.
so I believe that it's time for me to go home and
You've had your fun.
yes, ma'am. Had my fun. Now it's time to stay home. Yeah.
I understand.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That's great.
Well, the biggest thing, well, you do so many things, but how much land do you actually oversee as land commissioner of the state of Arkansas?
Okay. So if we start out with the biggest part of the office, which is tax-delinquent real estate, okay. Generally, we have somewhere around 10 to 15,000 parcels that pass through the office every year. And of course, parcels are different sizes. Some are less than an acre, a lot, for instance, and others, occasionally, we have 20 and 40 acres that are tax delinquent that we're going to offer for sale. And property that doesn't, the first auction that we have is an in-person live auction.
Okay.
So people come to the auction. You have to be present at the auction to bid and to register as a bidder. Just like any other auction, you place your bid, high bidder wins. Okay. If the property does not sell at the live auction, then it returns to the office. 30 days after the live auction, it goes into an online auction that operates a lot like eBay does. Bid is placed today on the parcel. 30 days later, the high bidder wins. Okay. And one thing that I would like to get across to investors if they're interested in buying property through the Land Commissioner's office, two things. Number one, if you are not a United States citizen, okay, you must have a residence inside the United States to purchase property through the Land Commissioner's office. Okay. And there are some pretty stiff penalties because when we find out that you do not have a resident and you're not a resident of the United States, you forfeit the property and you forfeit the money you paid for the property.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Is that something new, or has that always been the case?
No, that's a rule that we instituted a couple of years ago. That is one topic that I am questioned about almost every time I speak to a public gathering. Okay, what about non-U.S. citizens purchasing property? And as long as a non-U.S. citizen has a residence inside the United States, the Arkansas Constitution says that you cannot forbid them from engaging in commerce. In other words, buying cars, buying groceries, or buying property. Okay, as long as they have a residence inside the United States. So, and of course, one of the main reasons that we have that policy, that we instituted that policy a couple of years ago, was we're required by law to give legal notification. And legal notification is notification that the receiver has to sign for. Okay? Okay, so we use the U.S. mail, registered mail through the U.S. mail. Well, if you live overseas, the U.S. mail does not travel overseas. Okay,
Right.
so we have limited that to people that have a residence inside the United States.
And a residence is an house, a livable house that you're not that they own another piece of property.
Correct.
And that it is a residence that they have an address
That's
to.
correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes,
So
that they have an address. The term actually, I believe, is domicile.
Okay. Right.
But basically means residence.
Okay, so let me kind of walk through the process because Jodi and I, we've had this question asked to us many times. We'll get a phone call from, and this happened to me last year. A guy called me up, went to one of the sales, and wanted me to drive by and give him a value on this property. And come to find out, he had bought it from a tax-delinquent sale. And I gave him the value, and I could tell that wasn't the value that he was hoping for. And I asked him several questions, questions that he never even thought of. So let's walk through the the person that would be losing or forfeiting that. Okay, so they get a notice that they're delinquent on their sales, right?
Correct.
And they have let's pretend that they have a loan on it, that the bank has a loan on it. They've been making their loan payments, okay? A lot of times the loan and the taxes are not tied up in an escrow agreement like a normal house if it's a 20-acre parcel. So they're just missing this, you're paying their property taxes. What happens at the time of the sale when they still owe to a bank and they are delinquent on your sales and it goes to a tax auction?
Okay. First of all, let me start at the beginning of the process.
Okay, let's do that.
Today, you become tax delinquent on your property.
Right.
Okay. So for the next 2 years, the county collector will send you notifications saying, hey, you need to come in and pay your taxes.
Right.
2 years.
For the next 2 years. At the end of that 2-year period, the county will certify that property to my office. We spend another 2 years, okay, sending out notifications. And we do research on the property. We do research if a notice comes back as undeliverable or not at this address, okay, then we pay for a service that we can do searches and try to see if we can find heirs to the property, to send them notification. Hey, your father's property, is tax delinquent, and we're going to sell it at auction on this date. We also send notifications to anyone that has a lien on the property. Okay. So we look for connections to that parcel, and then we try to give a notification to that. were a bank, now I can just tell you, as far as most lending institutions are concerned about, most of the time that won't get to our office.
They're going to pay those
Well,
taxes, or they're going
to sell the property.
to before it gets there.
At foreclosure.
Yeah, I was going to say it's
right.
either
Yeah.
foreclosure or right.
So lending institutions, sometimes they will let a piece of property go to the auction, okay? But most of the time that doesn't happen.
There's not.
Yeah, so that's a rare occurrence.
Okay.
But when we list the property on our website, and our website is COSL, that's Commissioner of State Lands, abbreviated, COSL.org, okay?
Thank you. We'll put that up in the remarks as well.
Great. You go to my website, and we've done a lot of work on our website over the last 6 years. We have done things like we have added video tutorials talking about how you get registered as a bidder and what your responsibilities are and things like that. We also are very careful to try to encourage buyers to research the property before they come to the auction.
Explain research for just a second. What you're not referring to value. You're referring to title, liens, judgments, and
Ingress and egress.
Yes.
Right. Because you don't know if it's landlocked or not.
That's correct.
You're just
Right.
saying
That's
this
correct.
is delinquent and we're going to sell it.
Yeah.
Right.
The description we have of the property is whatever the county assessor has.
Okay.
Okay. We don't have anywhere near enough employees to go out and look at 12,000, 15,000 parcels.
Right.
You know, and try to determine access or whatever.
Yes.
So, we have 2 video tutorials that they can sit and watch. They're not long tutorials, okay? But they give them a little bit of an idea about how to go, for instance, to the circuit clerk's office to go into the circuit clerk's office and research liens and research right-of-ways or whatever, you know.
Right.
And I know that can be tedious and difficult, but if you're going to invest very much money in a piece of property, I think it's worth your time to do that. So we try to give you as much information as we can. And I'm sure if you go into the circuit clerk's office and say, okay, look, I'm looking at buying a piece of property from the land commissioner's office, and here's what he told me to do. How do I actually do that? They'll probably show you and help you with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're in the South.
That's
They'll
right.
help you. They're kind.
That's right. That's right. And so we encourage people to do that because what we issue is a limited warranty deed called a commissioner's deed, okay? Limited warranty deed does not mean clear title, okay? Now, let me say that again.
Yes, thank you.
Limited warranty deed does not mean clear title, okay? So if there are liens on the property, let's just say, for instance, that someone bought a lot and had a driveway built, okay, and never paid the person who did the dirt work and the gravel, and then the person who owned the property or the person who built the driveway filed a lien against that property. And the property becomes tax delinquent, makes it all the way to sale. We sell the property. That lien is not paid off. That real estate lien for the driveway, that lien is not paid off. So the person who purchases a property is going to have to deal with
Assumes that lien, basically, right?
Correct.
Interesting.
And my thought, and again, this is not legal advice. This is just my personal opinion. Okay, if I were looking at buying property, I'd research it, and if I saw liens on the property, I would call the lien holder, and I would say, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying this tax delinquent property." Okay, and I see you've got a lien on it, and you've got a lien on it for $2,000. Would you be willing to take $1,000 to pay that lien off? And I would work something like that if it was something I was really interested in and willing to put the money into. And and we've added a map. We've added a map since I've been land commissioner. If you look at a parcel, legal descriptions can sometimes not be very clear as to
Especially the older they are.
Yes.
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
confused.
right. So we've added a map, and if that property is for sale in the live auction, you go to that map, you zoom in. Let's just say it's Pope County. You zoom into Pope County, and you can look at each parcel. The parcel will be highlighted in red. Okay, so you can look on that parcel. You can click on it. brings you up a parcel number, and you can compare it to what the listing was. Is that the right parcel? And you see that's a lot at the corner of First and Main or whatever, you know.
Right.
Okay, so you can drive over to First and Main, and you can take a look at the property and see if that's what you're really interested in. So we added that map 3 years ago, I think.
That's great.
And, try to help folks because, like I said, legal descriptions can be so difficult to understand if you're not familiar with them. Right. And so we added that to try to help people. You know, we don't want to sell a piece of property to someone who doesn't really understand what they're buying. But at the same time, we're limited in what we can say to the buyers.
Absolutely.
You understand?
Right. Well, you're not representing them, if you will.
Correct.
You're just the seller still.
Right. But we try to do everything we can to encourage people and to give them the knowledge that they need to try to do their own research and determine if that's a piece of property they want.
So at the day of auction, let's say like someone purchases it at the auction, I guess from, you said in live auction first, correct?
Yes,
and then
ma'am.
it goes to the eBay style auction online.
Right.
So if they came to that auction, what does that process look like? What would they need to come with? Cashier's check? Is there financing available? What are the options for buyers for paying?
Yeah, there's no financing it, so it's payment day of sale.
Okay.
Okay. So you can bring a personal check, credit card, debit card. You can do an e-check.
Okay.
Okay. And that is a very inexpensive way.
Yeah.
You know, with a credit card, you usually have a 3 or 4%, something like that.
Right.
That e-check is $1.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
So we encourage everybody we can, look, if you want to pay for it, let's do it this way, and you only are out $1 more than what the price of the
I
property.
mean, they have time to go to
Fantastic.
the bank and get a check.
Well-
or I mean, because as you said, day of, and the auctions I've been, it's like I have to bring a check for $50,000, and it sells for $25,000, and I have to give you the difference, and I have to give you the check, and you send me the difference. So how does that work?
You have to give me a check for the amount.
For the amounts.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
We don't make change.
Okay. So then there's at least a little bit of time to say, okay, go get the check and bring it back.
It all depends. Here's what we've done 2 years ago. In the past, what you had to do is you had to wait for the auction to be completely over, and then you came and checked out. Okay.
Okay.
So what we've done is we had some software written where if you're coming to buy one piece of property and it's the first piece that's offered and you purchase that, you can go back there and check out right then.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay, now that may give you some time to run to your bank and come back.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe.
Okay. But the property needs to be paid for that day. What I would do is bring a blank check or something like that and handle it like that.
But you said cashier's check.
No, he
No,
said
cashier's check will be accepted, but it has to be made out for the amount that you're paying.
But not a
for the property.
personal check. Couldn't be.
No, personal check could be accepted.
Personal check's check.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was going to say. That's the missing link
Yeah,
right there.
that's I'm thinking cashier's check because that's all they, most
Right. Yeah.
most auctions is like, hey, cashier's check only.
We have stopped taking cash. Now, we used to accept cash at the auctions, but the problem was that in today's society, it's just not a good idea to travel around with a large amount of cash in your pocket and people know that you have it. You know,
Yep.
Correct.
so we stopped taking cash for the safety of our employees.
Sure.
And but we work with you on other forms of payment, like I say, credit card, debit card, a cashier's check. And, you might get a cashier's check. You look at a piece of property and you say, I would be willing to give $8,000 for that. You know, okay. So you might go and get a cashier's check for $8,000 or something like that.
Right.
And of course, if you buy it for less than that, then you've got a little bit of an issue. But an e-check or a credit card, debit card, those things work really easy. Yes, ma'am.
Well, so after they check out, when does the deed process and transfer happen? Is that day of, or is that a 30-day window?
Yeah, normally it's about 30 days. Of course, part of that has to do with the number of parcels that we have, okay?
Yeah.
This year, Pulaski County will be our first auction of the year.
Cool.
Okay, it will probably be it could possibly be a little longer than 30 days because Pulaski County is the largest auction
Sure.
that we have. And
Sorry. So you're in each county auctioning only Pulaski County parcels off at that time? Is that how that works?
Normally, here's what we did. Before I became land commissioner, we went to every county in the state and had an auction in that county.
Okay.
For instance, my first year as land commissioner, we went to Woodruff County and we auctioned off one parcel.
Okay. Yeah.
So we have 4 people traveling
Right.
to Woodruff County to auction one parcel.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we did, the law allows us to put counties together as long as they have a contiguous border. Okay.
Sure.
So they are adjacent to each other.
Yes. Yeah, I
So-
think so. Here
makes
it's
sense.
like Pope County, Yale County, and maybe Logan County. Or I know it's Pope and Yale
Or Johnson.
here.
Yes.
But I don't know if there's another one other than that.
Sebastian? No,
No.
not Sebastian. I can't remember right now.
But yeah, I've seen the notice, and it was for at least 2 counties that I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we did was we put counties together. We went from 75 auctions down to, I believe, 27.
Nice.
Okay.
That's great.
We went from
Efficient.
about 65 nights in a motel to 9 nights in a motel.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it cut expenses a great deal for the office, and but we're still taking care of. And like for instance, I know down in my home county, Cleburne County, we have Cleburne, Van Buren, and Faulkner County. Those 3 counties are together.
Wow.
Now, Faulkner County has a lot more
was gonna say,
parcels than Van
that's a
Buren
lot.
County or Cleburne County
Yes.
does. So if we have an unusual number of parcels for sale in Faulkner County, it may make the deed process just a little bit longer, a few days longer.
Sure.
Yeah.
So at that point, let's talk about what comes in 30 days. It's the commissioner deed. I'd like for you to hit on that, and then I'd like to even flow into turning around and reselling this property.
Yeah.
So
So you said the commissioner deed did not give you clear title,
Correct.
right?
That's correct.
So if the commissioner deed doesn't get all the liens that are off the property, the process then afterwards for a normal buyer who goes to your auction and buys it, he has to do a quiet title.
That's
to
correct.
It, right?
Uh-huh.
Fairly expensive. I thought I remember seeing a bill that was going through about quiet titles and stuff like that this session. I could be wrong. But it's somewhere, if I'm $3,000 to $4,000 maybe to quiet the title. Is that about right?
Yeah, some of the price is going to vary. Number one, upon which company you're dealing with. Okay,
Right.
and it's also going to vary how much time they have to spend on it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So the price can vary there.
Sure.
But I would not be a bit surprised at $2,500 or $3,000 for a quiet title.
Quiet title.
Yeah.
Right.
That wouldn't be surprising at all.
You're right.
And like I say, the issue with the commissioner's deed as a limited warranty deed is the liens are not taken care of. Okay. Whereas if you go through a title company, for instance, or a lawyer, that's one of the things that's going to be part of the process. Is
Right.
taking care of liens to clear the title. And with a limited warranty deed, you can't go to the bank and you can't get a loan to build a home or whatever you want to do because it's not a clear title.
Right.
They're only going to deal with clear title. So you should always take that into account when you're looking at a piece of property. This is a good piece of property, and I would be willing to pay X for it.
Right.
Okay, so then I have to realize that I'm also got the clear title process to go through, and let's just say that's $3,000.
Right.
Okay.
yeah.
So you're going to have to add that $3,000 onto that amount
That's-
if you're going
Right.
to want to do something with the property.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wise.
Yeah.
And then also taking into account maybe liens that come up. So you're saying maybe negotiate down to a half the price of what the liens would be if you can. But I agree with you. When people are budgeting, what they see the auction price going for is not what they're going to be in it at the end of the day. So I think that's just something, part of that due diligence, research period, all of that needs to be done ahead of time. So I think Caleb and I both, we get hit up a lot of questions about, let's just go. It seems like it's cheap land, and it's cheap for a reason because there's more.
Yes.
There's more steps afterwards.
I can tell you there are some parcels that we offer for sale, parcels that I have looked at myself just in curiosity, that I'm not really sure they would be a good deal if we gave them to you. Okay. Okay.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
So you need to look at it.
Yes.
And just to be honest, I mean, that's why do we have real estate agents?
Right.
Yeah.
Because of
Yeah.
those issues
That's
that,
right. We
that
can-
you run into, you
That's
know.
correct.
That's why they call us to say,
Yes.
hey, is this a good deal or not?
That's
And then-
correct.
We have to clean up a lot. Yes,
Yes.
you're right.
Right.
We give
But
them
then
the bad
that's the
news.
purpose for the title company. That's why they're so important in our world, even, is passing on property to the new buyer. It is clear. It is free of liens. You can go get a loan against it. So ultimately, that's good ownership.
If I go to one of your auctions and I purchase that property, I give you the money. The seller, the owner of the property,
That went tax delinquent.
that went
yes.
tax delinquent, has a certain amount of days that they can, basically pay those taxes and it not be something that I buy. Right?
That used to be.
That used to be.
Yes.
Okay.
2 years ago, we went to the state legislature and we asked them. 2 years ago, the process was this: we sold it today, and the previous owner had 10 business days to come in and redeem the property.
Okay.
Okay. If that business owner came in and redeemed the property within that 10 business day period, we refunded the money to the buyer.
Right.
Okay. And he came in and redeemed it, and then we issued what's called a redemption deed to the person who went tax delinquent,
Okay.
who redeemed the property.
Okay.
2 years ago, we went to the legislature and said, the property owner has had 4 years of notifications and 4 years of opportunity
Right.
to redeem the property. We would appreciate it if the state legislature would consider removing that 10 business day period. So they did. Okay. So now, day of auction, when it's sold, it's sold.
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 So it's done.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, let me add one thing to that. Now, there is, and always has been, a 90-day litigation period. Okay, so you purchase the property today. The previous property owner has 90 days to file a lawsuit saying, you didn't give me adequate notification, whatever,
Yeah.
And so there is a 90-day litigation period that if I were purchasing a piece of property, okay, I'd do my research, I would purchase the property, and then I wouldn't do anything else for 90 days.
90 days.
Okay.
Just
I would-
sit.
I
Just
would
wait.
Personally, I would just wait. Okay. And to see if the property owner was going to file a lawsuit or whatever.
Okay.
Are you seeing many of those, the 90-day
No,
litigations?
I mean, when you
Is that-
consider we're moving 10 to 12,000 parcels a year, we might see 4 or 5. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but something
Okay,
like
so
that. So
very,
it's
very
not.
low.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, it's not very very much, but it still is something that personally I would be
Sure.
careful and just wait.
Absolutely.
So, and one thing I'd like everyone to know is this: when we collect those taxes, and I'll tell you this, at the auction, the minimum bid is taxes, penalties, and interest. Okay, so when we collect those taxes, penalties, and interest, we hold that money for 11 months. Okay, in case we do have a lawsuit and we have to return the money to the buyer.
Interesting.
Okay, so we hold it for 11 months, and then at the end of that 11-month period, that money goes back to your county.
That's exactly what I
All
was
of
just
it?
wondering is what happens to the money?
Yeah.
So back to the county that the sale happened in.
Yes, yeah, back to the county that the property
The property.
is,
Okay.
is located in.
That's correct.
And
So is that 100%? What's the proceeds amount that goes, all of it?
we hold the penalties in our office
Okay.
because our notification process costs us over $500,000 a year.
Wow.
Okay.
So the penalties part, it's taxes, penalties, and interest. So the penalties stay in the office to help pay for notifications. The taxes and the interest go back to the county treasurer.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
And so, like I say, after 11 months, we send that money back to your county. And what folks need to realize about property taxes, nobody enjoys paying property taxes, but just to let you know, 80% of every county's budget, every county in the state of Arkansas, 80% goes for K through 12 education.
Okay. Yeah.
Only 20% of their budget goes for roads, sheriff's department, other things.
Right.
So, that's what your property taxes are funding.
Right.
And when you drive down that nice paved county road that increased your property value by $2,000 an acre, you can think, I'm finally going to get some of my money back.
Right? Absolutely.
So
how much money does your office make off of the penalties on a yearly basis, estimately?
Oh, that I'm not sure.
Probably make up the difference of the cost of notifying.
The last time I checked, which has been a year or so ago, we still ended up in the red as far as notification costs.
Okay.
So it's not a huge amount.
It's not a huge amount.
Yeah.
It's not making anything.
So one thing I will say is this: during that 11-month period that we hold that money, we do invest it in CDs. Okay. And I think we're the only state agency or state office that is mostly self-funded.
Wow.
Really?
We hold that money for 11 months,
That's
and
really cool.
we earn interest on it, and we turn around and use that interest to pay for operation costs and things like that. We have been working at saving money over my first 6 years. We did things like when I first came into the office, we renegotiated our cell phone contract, saved us about $10,000 a year, okay? We digitized our files that we had in outside storage. We were paying about $20,000 a year on that. We digitized those files, so we don't have outside storage anymore, so we're saving about $20,000. And we just did a lot of things like that, number one. And number two, the real estate market has been up.
Yeah.
So we have sold more property.
Right.
Yes.
When I took office, we had somewhere around 30,000 parcels that had gone through the live auction and no one had purchased them.
Wow.
Okay, they were sitting there in the office.
Wow.
And first of all, you had to know a little bit about how the office operated. You had to have some knowledge about the Land Commissioner's office, and you had to have some knowledge about legal descriptions, okay, to purchase that property that didn't sell at the live auction.
Right.
Because it was sitting there and it was still for sale.
Right.
We had somewhere around, I believe, 30,000 parcels. So we started the online auction and offered them for sale on the online auction that would have been 21, I believe, July of 21. We have about 500 parcels left.
That's great. I was going to say, that's where it's headed.
Yeah.
And I bet that was a giant endeavor to input. I can just imagine.
Yeah.
But hey, look where you're sitting today.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
And Americans,
when that property is sitting in the Land Commissioner's office, first of all, taxes aren't going to your county.
Right.
Because it's just sitting in the Land Commissioner's office,
Right.
number one. Number two, the Land Commissioner's office doesn't have any authority to do anything with that property other than sell it. In other words, we can't improve it. We can't clean it up. We can't do anything like that. Okay. So now when we sell that property, we put it in an individual's hands, okay? And he has an opportunity to invest his time, invest his money in that piece of property, and make it something valuable.
That's really cool.
Yes.
So that's
It's a win-win.
In my life, real estate has been the best investment I've ever made over my life.
Right.
And so giving folks an opportunity to find a piece of property that they believe fits their needs or their desires, and purchase that piece of property at a reasonable price. And sometimes they purchase it at a very good price, okay?
Right.
And then perhaps put some sweat equity into it and build something there that will mean something,
Right.
To their children or perhaps for retirement or whatever.
Right.
So it's much better to be in an individual's hands than it is being in the state of Arkansas's hands.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds like you started thinking that way at a young age.
Yes.
I mean, 18, 19?
19, yeah.
And what I love best about that story is that you relied on your realtor to get you
That's
you
right.
in there.
That's
I mean,
right.
he was your attorney, right?
Yes,
so
that's correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
you knew at a young age, hey,
Yeah.
these are great investments to make,
Yeah.
which is what we
Yeah.
coach our clients on.
Yeah.
Is that hey, this investment, the stock market does this
Yes.
usually, and especially land. land has not depreciated since COVID, the crazy COVID in 2020.
Yeah.
Houses have kind of done this. They peaked and they kind of plateaued, but we have not seen that in land.
No.
Land has just stayed up on an upward trajectory.
Yeah.
And properties that I would have thought there's no way that they get that per acre.
Yeah.
They got that per acre.
Oh,
And it's been, so to your point, you're 100% right. The investment in Arkansas land has been a very good investment.
Yes, it has.
Especially we've seen a lot of people from out of state look at it and say, wow, we can't get that in Texas.
Right.
We can't get that per acre in California.
Yeah.
And which is why you've been seeing this upward
Yes.
trajectory. But also, I mean, we just have some very unique, pretty lands
beautiful.
in Arkansas. And I think we're finally starting to get on the radar across the nation that especially central Arkansas, northwest Arkansas, very pretty part. Even what were you talking about earlier? The waterway through the South Arkansas.
Right. Washoe River. Yeah.
Beautiful places.
Yes,
Spring
it
River,
is.
Great, beautiful places.
This, Arkansas has the title of the natural state.
Yeah.
And you look at, as you drive around this state, and I go to towns all over this state. Okay, just in the month of March, I've been in Mount Ida and Hot Springs and Paragould.
Hey, that's
And
funny.
beautiful
I have
places.
too. Showing
you?
property. I'm thinking,
Right.
what am I doing?
Yeah, and I mean, I've just been all over the state, and I can tell you, Arkansas is unusual. I've been to 42 states. Okay,
Wow.
Wow.
so I recognize how pretty our country is, but I tell you, I always come back to Arkansas, and I'm happy to get back. Okay, because inch for inch, I don't think you can find a prettier place to live than Arkansas.
I agree
love
with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to switch on you just real quick because we talked earlier about before we started. You oversee the waterways in Arkansas.
Yeah.
So, but I think when we say that, there's a little bit of misconception, and I had this a couple years ago, and I ran into you at the fair, and I said, "Hey, what about this?" And you corrected my viewpoint on the way that Arkansas views the waterways and what we as a state are in charge of, and then what the federal government is in charge of. So let's use one of the biggest ones in the Arkansas River, okay? What are you in charge of when it comes to the Arkansas River? What do you oversee?
Okay, as far as as far as waterways are concerned, in Arkansas, the state owns the riverbed. Okay, so from a point called the ordinary high water mark on one bank of the river to the ordinary high water mark on the other bank of the river. In between, what's underneath the water, that belongs to the state of Arkansas. That's state of Arkansas property. And the mineral rights also belong to the state of Arkansas.
Okay.
Okay, when you look at the Arkansas River and you look at the river channel and the fact that it is a federal navigation way, waterway.
Yes.
Okay, so most of the responsibility for the Arkansas River lies with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Okay, they maintain the channel. They determine where the channel is going to be and what sort of bank protection issues need to be taken care of. That's the Corps of Engineers because it's a federal waterway project.
Okay.
When you look at issues like on the White River. Well, I've got an issue that I could mention to you.
Okay.
That was on the Spring River last year. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Spring River is northeast Arkansas,
Right.
a very popular float
Right,
river.
right.
Very beautiful area. It has a series of small waterfalls, 5 or 6 feet, and the topography of the river is a little unusual, but because of that interesting geology, a sinkhole opened up in one of the waterfalls, and a lady had exited her canoe and was walking across the waterfall and stepped into the sinkhole, and she drowned.
Oh, wow.
And so it's when that came to our knowledge, what we did was we got together with the Game and Fish Commission and the State Department of Geology to go up there and take a look at it and determine what we could do to make that safe. And so what we determined is we would fill the hole with small, what's called ballast rock, so that water could still pass through, okay, but you couldn't step in it and get stuck.
Right.
It was about 8 feet deep.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
And So we worked with the Department of Geology on that, and the Game and Fish actually used their equipment to transport the rock to the sinkhole and fill it up. Okay, so that was our responsibility. We took care of it.
Okay,
and so when you look at smaller rivers, we do things like that, and we work with county government on some rivers with some issues that they're having.
Can I ask you about like the a couple years ago we had that huge flood, right? And then you have the banks of the river. I'm trying to think of what that term is. That there's a committee that's set up over that, but basically it broke.
That was the levee task force.
The levee, thank you. The levee task force. Is that something that you oversee, the levees, or is that another federal?
That actually is several different parties. I was part of the levee task force. Okay. And so what we did was we looked at most levees have what's called a levee district. Okay. And the property that is protected by the levee is taxed at a little different rate. And that money is used to maintain the levee. In other words, keep it mowed, keep trees off of it. If, for instance, high water comes up and washes part of the levee away, then that money is used to repair the levee.
Okay.
So we have, I don't remember how many levee districts in the state, but we have a bunch of levee districts.
Okay.
And
but you don't oversee, your department doesn't oversee that. It's a separate state.
County.
It's a county.
Levee district, district area.
So the counties over those. Okay. Understood.
Okay. So that's local government.
Okay.
That's not state government.
Okay.
So they oversee those. Now, there are some that are overseen by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, okay, like the levee district along the Mississippi River.
Okay.
And some of the levees along the Arkansas River.
Okay.
And the Arkansas River was the river that we had such a big problem with. Actually, I think that was in 19 when I was first elected. I think that was the first year I was elected, that we had the big flood on the Arkansas River and washed some levees away.
Washed the barges away.
Yes. Yeah. And it was a tremendous mess. So what we did a year ago was we partnered with the governor's office for a levee review. We paid, our office paid to have the Department of Agriculture go out and work on reviewing levees, looking at levees, and seeing whether when you have a levee district, you usually have a levee district board, okay, and that board is appointed usually by the county judge or something like that, and that board oversees the maintenance of the levee. Well, some levee boards have just ceased to operate over the years. And there's no one been appointed, okay? And those levees are usually in very bad shape. So my office and the governor's office are working to look at those levees and determine what levees need attention, what levees do not have levee boards presently, and try to make sure that each levee is taken care of the way it should be taken care of.
Right.
And so we're working on that, but I don't have any authority over levees.
Okay, so projects that I know of, or a project, Lake Conway, that's Game and Fish.
Game and Fish, correct.
And Corps of Engineers, still I understand, right? So that's not you. The White River, that's a dam, right? So that's Corps of Engineers, right?
Yeah.
But is it like the Arkansas River where you have mineral rights to the White River and all that still stays the same?
Yeah. Most of the mineral rights that we take revenue in on is sand and gravel mining. Okay. So companies will go out there and mine the sand out of the bottom, and then they pay the state a certain amount per ton. Okay.
It's a tax
yes, I guess you could call that a tax. A tax on the producer.
Right.
You see what I mean? He pays the amount, and it's not a large amount. I can't remember exactly what it is now, but anyway, we collect those funds, and those funds are used in state government.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what other, is there any other navigable rivers or streams that you would say, yes, we're not that cores out of this one, but kind of a noticeable one that you would that you have more control over?
Oh, well, the White River would probably be the biggest one. Now, the Corps maintains that issue for a certain distance down the river. Okay.
Okay.
And then after that it becomes.
But as it starts getting into East Arkansas, the Batesville,
correct. Past that.
That's
yes.
kind of where you're
Correct.
going to pick up most of it. Okay.
And like any river that is considered navigable. Okay.
Okay.
Now it's navigable sometimes because of legislative law, written law, and sometimes it's navigable because of case law. In other words, a lawsuit has come up and a judge has ruled, okay, that is a navigable river.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if the river has never been deemed navigable by written law or case law, okay, then we don't have authority over it.
Okay.
Only navigable rivers.
Only navigable rivers.
Right.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else on that you'd like to? Anything I'm missing on the waterways that you'd like to mention? I know what I was going to. I was going to ask you. We talked about dredging earlier.
Yes.
And how that would be an economic boom.
Yes.
In mine and your opinion. Just briefly, talk to us about the Arkansas River, where the dredge level is currently, where it has been talked about going in the future, and how that could help Arkansas's economy moving forward, because that's we miss that
Yes.
so much,
Yeah.
and that it is such a very well used river with stuff going from Tulsa to Little Rock. It was an excellent way to make up some money for the state.
Sure.
I think we're missing it. Go ahead.
Yeah. I can't remember the footage exactly, but I believe the barge channel right now is somewhere around 13 to 16 feet. And if we deepened that channel, I think by 3 feet, okay, just make it 3 feet deeper, it is unbelievable the amount of extra cargo tonnage that could navigate the river.
Right.
And, I just believe that if we made that available, okay, and of course that would be going through the Army Corps of Engineers. That wouldn't be something the state of Arkansas did.
Right.
But if we could do that through the Corps of Engineers and get that channel dredged out deeper, that extra 3 feet, that would increase the opportunity for us to ship more product down that up and down the river.
Right.
And to me, when a business has an opportunity to create more product, ship it economically, then that's exactly what they're going to do.
Right.
Okay. And that's more jobs. If I owned a company that was creating a product, say in Fort Smith, and we made it so I could ship more product down the river, that's exactly what I'd do. And
Sure.
Yes.
you know what I'd do? I'd spend my money. You know where I'd spend my money? Right here in Arkansas.
Right.
That's
Okay.
right.
Right.
Most of my money
right.
would be spent right here in Arkansas.
Right.
The grocery stores,
That's right.
the furniture stores, the car lots, you name it. That's
Bring
where
it
my money
back.
would be going.
Bring
Sure.
it back home. you
Correct.
know?
Right.
And
And it's cheaper.
Yes.
For the industry, it's cheaper to go down the river or up the river
right.
than it would be to, say, put it on a diesel truck and haul it across.
If I remember correct, that it is the cheapest way to transport goods. Okay.
Wow.
So don't hold me to that,
Yeah.
but I believe
yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah. It would make sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
if it's not the cheapest, I would be very confident it's in the cheapest three.
Well, if you get more tonnage, so think about a barge and what its capacity is, and a diesel truck and what its capacity
Correct.
is. I would assume that the barge would hold a lot more
Yes.
that you could take than a diesel truck. So if we could dredge it, put more on there, that's going to save me more money because I'm putting more product for about the same price
Right.
to go down the river.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So I don't know. It just seems
Yeah.
to me like we're missing out on
Me too.
a big
Me too.
opportunity.
Yeah.
We got to somehow. I'm sure you have him in speed out. Is there a way that you can get hold of President Trump and talk down? No, you
Yes.
were just
I'll
the
give him a
man
call
that needs
this
to know.
afternoon.
Okay, I
sure.
figured you could do it.
Yeah.
All
I'm
right.
sure you could get a hold of him on X somewhere.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
That's for
yeah.
sure.
Just
Tweet
just get him on
Or
X.
But
yeah.
that is something that I think would be a fantastic project in Arkansas. Of course, we're in a situation right now where we are trying to determine just exactly where, from a federal standpoint, where we're going to put our money.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and so I realize that is not always an easy decision because you're going to have to say no to somebody.
Right.
But to me, this seems like such a no-brainer that, I don't know, it just,
Right.
I would certainly hope and pray that we would take a look at
Well,
that.
I know I've talked to Senator Bozeman before, and he's 100% in favor of this. He's worked on this in the years past. He's tried him. He's on the committee for agriculture committee.
Yeah.
And so he sees the need in that. I don't know. I don't know how we get that on the back on
the radar.
Back on the radar of people talking about it more, but I think we're missing out on a really big economic plus for all these cities next to the river. But so two other things before I get out of here. Jody and I, obviously we have a lot in leadership that we do, both in the company and out of the company. And when we have people like you that are in here that you have employees, you've been leading them and the state and this agency, and even before that, you were a leader in other places. So kind of define what leadership looks like to you and how you did it over the last couple years. Just so I always love hearing different perspectives on what leadership is.
The first thing is you always need to consider the future, okay? And that's not easy to do sometimes. When I look at the real estate opportunities I missed over the years, I would be a very rich man right now if I could see the future,
Right.
But we need to definitely consider the future. And that's number one. And number two is this. I have a plaque on my door inside my office, the door that goes into my office. And I'm not sure who made the quote. I know that Ronald Reagan kept the quote on his desk in the Oval Office. And it says, there's no telling how much one can accomplish if he doesn't care who gets the credit.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
And to me, the thing is don't worry about the credit, okay? Just worry about producing something that is going to be, if you're an individual, look at doing something that's going to produce something for your family long term.
Right.
Long term. As a state elected official, I need to look at what will be productive for the people of the state of Arkansas to the best of my ability. Nobody's 100% seeing into the future,
Right.
But and I think most of the people in state government, elected officials in state government that I've talked to over the years, I can tell you, I believe most of them have good motives. Okay, they really do. It's just that inability to see what the future is going to hold. But do your best to look into the future and see, will this pay off 20 years from now?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And number one, like I say, don't worry about getting the credit. Just do the job and don't worry about it.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice. And we miss that a lot. You work hard at something, you want credit for it, right?
Yep.
But if you can just see that the benefit is not in getting the glorification of what you just accomplished, it's in serving it's giving value to the people that you are trying to help. That's where the satisfaction comes from is that knowing that you did a good job.
When I became land commissioner, the thought in the back of my head was this: if when this is over with, and I go home, can I look my wife in the eye and say, I did the best I could do? And if I can do that, I'm happy with the job I did.
Yeah, that's right. That's great. Okay, so one other question. 3 books. 3 books that you would recommend to somebody, because I'm a big book. You see all these books I got. So 3 books that's really meant a lot to you over the years, that inspired you, or something that you're reading now, just something that the audience can say, yeah, that's a good book. Yeah.
Okay. The very first one, without a doubt, far above any others, is the Bible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I cannot tell you. Do we have time for me to relate a little story?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
During a period of time in my life, I read a chapter of Proverbs every day, because there's 31 chapters in Proverbs and 30 to 31 days in the month. So I'd read chapter 1 on the first day of the month, chapter 2, chapter 3, so on and so forth. Yeah. So I did that for years. I don't know how long, but for a long time. My wife and I had bought a small cattle farm. We'd moved out there, and at that time we were living in a mobile home. And So we were having children, and my wife said, we need a house. Okay. And I'd been saving money. My purpose of saving money was to purchase cows.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
And so she's convinced me that, no, that really isn't the best thing to do, Tommy. The best thing to do is build a house, So we looked at it, we talked about it, we said, okay, we'll build the house. Now, at the time that we made that decision, you could go to the sale barn and you could buy what's called a pair, a mama cow and a baby calf, okay, for about $350, okay? And so we decided to build the house, and it took us about 2 years to get the house built. And we built our house. We built it no debt, okay? So we built it over 2 years, no debt. And we moved into it. We got everything settled, and I said, okay, now I'm going to buy cows. She said, okay. So went to the sale barn the next Monday, and a cow-calf pair was about $950.
Goodness.
Oh, wow.
Okay. In Proverbs, in a verse that I had read, 100 times maybe, I don't know, many, many times. I'm reading through that after I'd been to the sale barn, probably the next day or two, and there's a verse that says, "First make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterward build thine house." I could have paid for a house with cows if I'd purchased the cows first, okay?
Right.
So you see, I made what I felt like was a good decision, but it did not match what the Bible said, okay? So I look back on that and I think, man, you are really dumb. You know that? You read that how many times, and it still did not stick.
But the Bible's living and active, and it
Yes.
flows with us when we need it. I just wish you're right. There could have been
Does it say anything about happy wife, happy life?
life, yeah.
Yes, correct. That's correct. And that's on my
Did you
mind a
get to
lot.
Proverbs 31?
But like I say, there's so much wisdom in the
Yes.
Bible. There's so much wisdom there that, and not just wisdom about eternal things, wisdom about very practical things.
Mm-hmm.
How do you conduct your business? Okay. How do you deal with your neighbor?
Right.
Things like that. So there's just so much very practical wisdom there that I just tell you, I would seriously have to tell you that the number one book is the Bible.
Absolutely.
And the number two book is the Bible, and the number three book
There
is the
you go.
Bible.
That's
Okay.
it.
I
And
like it.
Proverbs specifically, I love where you pulled
Yes.
that out.
Yeah.
And in our business, it talks about business and transactions, but just in relationships, it's so good.
Yeah.
I just got done reading it also.
Yeah, we just got done studying Proverbs.
Great,
So
great.
the wisdom literature, we went
Yes.
through, we're in Matthew and then wisdom literature right now. So it's good stuff all the way through it. So
Yes,
it's
it
fun. It's exactly your number one book was Dr. Jones's number one book too, and he almost gave you the exact same reasons.
Oh, wow. Good.
Proverbs.
And he mentioned Proverbs too. So
good.
you see these. It feels good sitting across the table that when we talk to leaders like you and Dr. Jones, that the principles are the same in the leadership that we have in the States, and that makes people feel so much better about the direction that we're going, both in the community with Dr. Jones and the university and you and all these years that you've worked for the state. So we just appreciate that
bet. You
very
bet.
much. And it helps also too that you had some land experience in buying and selling land beforehand.
Right.
And I think over the years, maybe we've missed that. You said 30,000 we had in there. And so I just think that was something I took away from it is like, hey, experience matters.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, like you said, matters to say, all right, this is a problem. How do we fix it? And I don't think anybody knows that you probably did all those things, and because you didn't want the credit. I get it. We're going to give you credit now.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yes.
Thank you.
That helped.
25,000 sold. So
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, that's a lot of for sale. Hey, that just sold. You could have just sold on all your stuff. Us realtors are good at marketing. We'll do the marketing for you. Don't worry about that.
Okay. All right. That's
But
good.
hey, thank you for being here, and
bet.
we appreciate your time, appreciate your wisdom, and we look forward to you finishing out your next almost year and a half, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you. And I just want to say again, we truly live in a great state.
We do. Absolutely. We really do.
Sure do.
Beautiful state.
We agree with that.
Thanks for joining the Caleb and Jodi Moore podcast today. If you like what you heard, just hit the like and subscribe button there below.
And we want you to be a part of the process. So if you have questions or topics that you'd love for us to cover, please add them in the comment or send us a message.